Hello, everyone. Dr. B from Steps to the Future here with you with the College and Career Conversations with Dr. B. I'm excited to have my guest with me this evening, and in a short bit, I will read a bio for her, and then we'll get an opportunity to talk to her and learn a little bit more about her. But I just wanted to let everyone know that I didn't abandon you over the last 2 weeks. I just took a little pause and decided to just do some self-care, one of those things that I preach to you folks all the time. I had a wonderful time. I went home to Rhode Island. I had a wonderful time just chilling out with family and friends. No big projects to do, no running here, there, and everywhere, just really just chilling out. So I'm so glad I had the opportunity to do that. And now back to reality. So let me give you a brief bio of our guest today. So today we have with us Angela Lewis, who is an executive life coach. So let me give you a little information about Angela. She earned a bachelor's degree in public administration from North Carolina Central University, an HBCU here in North Carolina, and she has an executive MBA from Washington University at St. Louis. She also completed the Mentor Coach training program and earned the designation as a certified mentor coach. She's also a member of the International Coach Federation, the gold standard in coaching around the world, and she earned the certification status of Associate Certified Coach. She has over 30 years experience as a seasoned executive, prepared by education and enriched by experience. She combines a deep knowledge of human resources, coaching, consulting skills, competencies and abilities that support innovative and forward-thinking solutions for her clients. She's skilled at partnering with cross-functional teams, developing and revising strategies to ensure continued progress towards goals, as well as undertaking new and unique challenges, while building and maintaining a positive relationship within multicultural and multi-generational environments. She has an excellent track record of partnering with her clients to support them in meeting and exceeding their overall objectives and goals. She utilizes her versatility, availability, relevance, and differentiation in developing unique, authentic, long-term relationships with her clients based upon customized services. She has a valued added specialized expertise that includes a perspective that identifies and executes strategic solutions to individual and organizational barriers and challenges and facilitates client learning that results in improved effectiveness. So when we come back from this short break, which I hope you jump out and grab your coffee, your tea, your water, whatever beverage you're enjoying this evening, come back with me and we will have a quick break here. And we'll be back. And when we come back, we will talk to Miss Angela Lewis. Miss Angela Lewis, thank you so much for joining College and Career Conversations this evening. I am thrilled to have you on as a guest.
Well, thank you for this opportunity.
Okay, so we're going to just start right out. People know that I've been really interested in talking with folks who have attended historically Black colleges and universities. And I know within your family, our family, that quite a few family members have attended HBCU. So you attended North Carolina Central University. Tell us about your experience. First of all, why did you choose NCCU?
Well, let me tell you a little bit about my journey and my background. So, I'm what they call a military brat. My dad was a soldier in the United States Army. So, between kindergarten and 12th grade, I went to 9 different schools throughout the United States and Europe. And so, what that did for me, Belinda, amazingly, it gave me a love for people. I understood the quality of connecting and building relationships because we would be there, only short periods of time. So, uh, my dad's tour of duty took me to Berlin, Germany when I was in junior high school in the ninth grade. But his tour split my senior year. And so I came back from Berlin to Fayetteville, my hometown, and stayed with my grandmother. Graduated from the historic E.E. Smith High School, Golden Bull, and literally live right across the street from Fayetteville State, the prestigious Fayetteville State University. Um, didn't want to go to Fayetteville State, wanted to get away from home. And my cousin, who had been a model for me, Charlita, went to North Carolina Central University. I had applied to Howard and to NCCU, got selected for both, accepted in both, but finances caused me to have to choose NCCU. Best decision I could make. So that's how I ended up at Central.
Okay, thank you. So we have a couple of people watching who have sent messages. So we have a message from Chatelle. She said, hello. Hello, Chatelle. I'm glad that you're here, and I hope that you're enjoying your trip through New England. And we also have with us this evening, Stacy. Happy Monday to you also, Stacy. We thank you so much for joining in. Please make sure you share this out with people, because I think these conversations always have something for everyone. So it's really important that people have an opportunity to learn about these. So tell me about your time at NCCU. I know that you majored in public administration. How did you choose that particular major?
Well, it's just an amazing journey. Again, a little bit about my parents. Neither one of my parents graduated from high school. My dad joined the Army. He quit, joined the Army. He was actually 17 years old. By the time they discovered he was underage, he had had his 18th birthday. So both of my parents got GEDs. My mother went on to be a licensed beautician. So she went to cosmetology school. So I'm in my family, first generation college student. During that era, wonderful era of American history, we were able to get what they call basic educational opportunity grants for school, not student loans. Did you hear me clearly? Grants.
Grants.
And because of that opportunity, when I went to Central, wasn't sure what I wanted to major in. Again, I had an older cousin that was just leading the way. I had a passion in advocacy and engagement. Remember, I actually came through the 70s. And so political science was the direction that I was going in. While I was at North Carolina Central University, Dr. Tyrone Baines started the public administration department out of the political science department. And so I became a public administration major, and literally because of the leadership, the direction that I got from Dr. Tyrone Baines, it just transitioned my entire life, put me on a different trajectory. I became an intern because of Dr. Baines with NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, with the federal government. At that time, they called it cooperative education. Dr. Baines was in a program with the administrator of NOAA. It was a program at Kellogg up at the University of Michigan. They developed a friendship, and this opportunity for two students at NCCU to have an internship with NOAA took place. Myself and another one of my friends were selected from the PA department. Internships were common for the public administration department, but we're in the heart of Research Triangle Park. So those opportunities were there in RTP. So we were blessed to go out of state to the nation's capital and work there. And that resulted in me having a career in the federal government in human resources. But it was the leadership, the community, the true sense of belonging that I experienced there. And one of the things that I want to say emphatically, for the first time in my entire life, Dr. Baines spoke words to me that I had never heard before. He called me a scholar. And I'm going to tell you how significant that was. Throughout my academic journey, I was always an honor student. In junior high, I was accepted in the National Junior Honor Society, then the National Honor Society. Again, my dad's tour of duty split my education. I went to Germany with the credentials to be in this National Honor Society. When I got to Germany, they didn't accept me in the society. All the other people didn't have the melatonin in their skin that I had. So I experienced a lot of things like that coming up. But he spoke, to hear it from him ignited the light in me to see really my value and my worth. And it just put me on a focus of confidence in who I was and what I could achieve. First time someone called me a scholar, even though I had trophies and other certificates that represented intellectual learning and academics.
That is so important what you just said about the words that we speak into students or speak into their lives. It's amazing every time I speak with someone who attended and graduated from an HBCU. You hear similar stories. You talk about the leadership that was at these universities. You hear about the mentoring. You hear about the sense of community and family. And I love what you just told us about your internship at NOAA. Internships are crucial. I mean, nowadays, if students go to college and they don't have an internship, it really puts them at a disadvantage. Oh, yeah. So you mentioned that having that internship at NOAA and having the opportunity to be introduced to the federal government, that led to a career in the federal government for you. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Right. So the way the internship was set up, I started in the summer after my sophomore year and did that first semester my junior year. And so I got 12 hours credit for the internship and had assignments to do, papers to do, that kind of thing. And so I rotated every other semester after then, going up to NOAA. The way it was set up, human resources, they called it personnel back then, had different kinds of organizational functions. And my internship opportunities allowed me to rotate through the different disciplines of human resources. Most of the time when people think of human resources, they think of hiring and recruiting. That is a significant part of it. But then there are other aspects of it. And so when I finished my senior year at North Carolina Central, NOAA offered me a job with the National Weather Service, which is a component of NOAA. And so I worked in Silver Spring, Maryland at the headquarters of the National Weather Service. My passion in terms of that HR experience was in labor and employee relations. And I have to tell you that by nature, I kind of avoid conflict. Labor and employee relations, from layman's terms, I would call it the underbelly of HR. It's where you deal with all type of employee issues, discipline, performance. I was in contract negotiations with the labor unions, dealing with grievances, unfair labor practices, disputes. But it was something about that experience that ignited me. And the more I've learned in my journey, again, I'm people oriented. I'm kind of a peacemaker by nature and drive and solution oriented. And I think I was just thriving in that culture. And so my career took off in human resources. Starting with that internship and that opportunity with NOAA Weather Service. Very quickly, I was there only a year and had an opportunity. They had what they call a personnel officers conference. And the deputy personnel officer from Kansas City came, Mary Melton. She and I chatted. I walked her back to the subway station that day. And I was telling her my passion was labor and employee relations, but they didn't have any openings in weather service. And I was working in a different discipline. A couple of weeks later, called me from Kansas City, offered me a job to come to Kansas City, said you can be doing labor and employee relations work and some other aspects. I didn't even know where Kansas City was. I had just gotten to DC, just got my first car. I was in the nation's capital, but I accepted that opportunity because I had this passion for labor and employer relations. My goal was to stay in Kansas City for 2 years to get what I called field experience and then come back to DC headquarters. That's where all the higher level positions were.
Right, right.
My whole life changed. 2 years became 30 years. I ended up
Mm.
basically retiring from the federal government in Kansas City.
Wow, that is an amazing, amazing journey and probably so much in between. We have a
Yes.
comment from one of our viewers who's letting you know that you have an amazing profile. So
Thank you.
thank you so much for that. And we have another viewer that has joined in with us, Miss Charlita Littlejohn. Thank you for joining us. We're glad that you're here. Please, folks, as you have questions or comments, please put them in the chat, and we'd love to hear whatever questions or comments that you have so that we can share them with the audience and keep that conversation going with you. So when you started working there or during your time there, what was the most challenging part of working in that field for you?
One of the things that became kind of immediately challenging for me was that there was more paperwork than people work. So I was thinking, personnel, HR, I'm dealing more with people, but there was just so much paper associated with it. And then in that government culture, the whole government structure is based on laws and regulations. And so knowing what those laws and rules and regulations were was just an integral part of me being successful in the role. One of the things about my PA experience and working with Dr. Baines, he actually equipped us for the workforce, the workplace, that work environment. He taught us that you just don't know who's who by looking at the organizational chart. That's only half the story. Just because a person is in a position of authority, they may not necessarily be running things. And that there's this interworking of influencers that you need to understand the culture and learn about. So there were those tips and strategies that I got from my HBCU experience that equipped me for that working world.
That is so important. That's something that, as we're talking with young folks who are thinking about what colleges they may like to attend, they're always saying, how do I know if this is the school for me? And we're really trying to give them, just like your professors did, those tips and strategies on how to learn a little bit about the culture. It goes beyond, I love what you said about going beyond that organizational chart. You have to find out who are the people that are making the decisions, and that big word, influencers. I mean, we know that with TikTok and all the social media and stuff out there, we know all about influencers. So this is something that this generation should be right on top of. But again, it's going on those websites and digging deep. Just don't look at the surface. I always tell my students, go into the departments. If you want to major in physics, go into the physics department website. Read the bios of those professors. Who's doing what? Who's doing what kind of research? And again, it's not always that title that is going to be of interest to you. It may be what somebody else is doing, but you have to dig a little bit deeper.
Right.
Yeah.
Another key strategy he gave is about initiating, not just to wait for an assignment to come in, but be in tune. So that type of training and education, when I went into my job, I read the employee handbook. I knew what the rules and the policies were for the workplace. As an African American, I knew that our culture has double standards. What's okay for someone who doesn't look like me in terms of behavior in the workplace. If I replicated that and it was outside of workplace rules, most likely I wouldn't be treated the same. And so I understood that going into the workplace. And I'm going to share again from the perspective of an African American. This is the message that I got when I left the house. When you leave this house, you represent the Thomas name. You don't go out acting a nut. So I had a standard. When I was an intern from North Carolina Central University, I had that sense of accountability that I represented my HBCU. And so my performance and my behavior, my attitude, how I showed
Mhm.
up on the job was important because a lot of times I was it in terms of a person of color in that culture. And I wanted to ensure that how I was showing up was in alignment with the values and the integrity that I possessed and what I knew my institution represented. And most of all, what I knew my family represented too. And I did the same thing. I'm the parent of three kids. They'll tell you now, before we walked out of the store, I mean, out of the house, go to school, we had our prayer. And I told them what I heard my parents tell me. You represent the Lewis name. You are not the class clown. You are in school to learn.
Mhm.
And this is what I expect of you in terms of your behavior. That was the kind of home training.
Right.
Those messages were very clear in my HBCU experience.
Yeah. I'm just laughing as I'm reminiscing about listen hearing. I can hear my mother in my ear. Okay, don't go out of this house acting crazy because if it comes back to me,
Oh, yeah.
then you have to deal with her. And I can remember that was my biggest fear. I'm not a risk taker to begin with. And
Mhm.
I was, I loved school. So I was, kind of a goody two shoes in school. But when those opportunities came up to like, act up a little bit, I could hear Irene. And
Yeah.
I said, now, if she gets wind of this, I have to go home to her.
Mhm.
and
Exactly.
and I cannot be going home facing the wrath of Irene. So let me just do what I'm supposed to do,
Yeah.
and just keep my nose to the grindstone, and
Yeah.
and do what needs to be done.
Yeah. I,
Yeah.
I look back on my journey now, and as I shared kind of that teaching and training, and then literally before I went to NCCU, I saw this work ethic modeled in my parents and my grandmother and my aunts and uncles. It's a mantra. In the African American community, we have to work twice as hard to get half the credit. And so I came in with that narrative as a part of my shaping. And I was one, and this was feedback that both Vivian, my dear friend who was also an intern, um, when we finished an assignment, we just didn't sit there, we didn't socialize, we asked for more work. And so that broadened our experience and our depth of understanding. It also broadened the type of competencies and skills that we had because we kept stretching, we kept growing, we kept asking for more. And I would encourage every student that's an intern to have that type of aggressiveness and focus. Do your work, do it well, but when you finish it early or whatever, try to learn more. Try to get some stretch opportunities so that you can grow and learn. And the principle is the same about education. When it's in you, whether you get credit for it or not, it cannot be taken away. It's yours. You own it, and you can use it to the best of your ability. So when you have that opportunity, squeeze the life out of every opportunity because it benefits you.
I love that. I love that so much because, I would sometimes students will say to me, well, I have to go to this workshop or I have to do this, and I really don't want to do it. And my advice to them always, you're going to be there for 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever the amount of time it is. Do not go to an event or anything and not come back having learned something from
Yeah.
that event. Um, I really like what you said about stretch yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Ask for additional work. Always be in that learning mode. That is
Mm-hmm.
so crucial. Learning does not stop when the assignment stops. We're
Exactly.
forever, we're all lifelong learners, and it's really important that students understand that everything they do is a learning opportunity and
Mm-hmm.
use that. You may not be able to use it at that particular internship, or, if you're working at Food Lion, what is
Mm-hmm.
it that you're doing to learn more about the other occupations that are within Food
Mm-hmm.
Lion?
Mhm.
What does the manager do in Food Lion? What does
Exactly.
the chief financial officer do at
Mhm.
Food Lion? Find out about those other positions. Talk to them.
Mhm.
Ask those types of questions. Do those informational interviews. And when you have the opportunity to step foot in that environment, I love what you said about stretch yourself.
Yeah.
That is crucial. That is so crucial.
Yeah.
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 So you talked about you retired. But before you retired, didn't you go and get another degree?
Yes, I
Yeah.
did.
So
And
talk about that one.
yeah, so I had this journey. I told you my plan was to go to Kansas City, stay there 2 years, get back to DC. My whole life turned around in Kansas City. One of the things that happened to me, I got married and I was blessed to have 3 children. At that time, I became a full time first child.
Mm,
That journey was a wonderful journey for me. I actually homeschooled my children until my oldest was third grade. My youngest was 2 girls, oldest third grade, second grade, and my son had entered kindergarten. And so I was a homeschool mom. Enjoyed that opportunity, wouldn't trade it for the world. But I always had a desire to go back to school. My life's journey took me down a different path. I became a single mom, had to go through a divorce. My focus was on my kids, their success, their education. Was blessed to get 3 kids in college. When my youngest son finished in 2009, he finished high school. In 2014, he finished college. And I said, it's my time now.
mm,
So I always knew that when I retired, I wanted to start my own business.
mhm.
But I also knew that my entire journey was in the federal sector, in the public sector. I had never taken a business course before. And so the idea came, well, why don't you just get an MBA? I mean, that's just how simple the logic was for me. Started doing research on MBAs
Mm,
and in Kansas City, University of Missouri at Kansas City, and also in St. Louis at Washington University. They had executive MBA programs. I liked the WashU program better than the KU program, and I was accepted at Washington University. It was a 20-month accelerated program. WashU at that time was ranked number 2 in the executive MBAs. Their focus was in the financial realm. And I tell people outside of childbirth, that was the hardest experience of my life. I had never taken a business course before. So
mm.
I'm in this room truly with C suite and CEOs. They were speaking their normal language. I'm in the federal government in HR. It was like learning a whole new language. It was truly like having that fire hose to your mouth, and all of this you had to absorb quickly.
Yes.
Um, and I have to also say that hindsight, my greatest enemy was my own mind, the negative thoughts, the less than, I'm not good enough, you don't belong here. I battled those thoughts just tremendously. But I am grateful to say that I have the victory. I made it through that program. I still saved an exam that I had. It was 7 pages long. I had to do a merger of 2 organizations. All
Mhm.
of these math equations, honey, math was not my specialty. Whatever I needed out of that 20 months, my Heavenly Father helped me through that, and I passed that exam. Um, so it was a fulfillment of a desire to do business after retirement. So I was blessed September 30th, 2016, to end 30 years in the federal government. I was the Human Capital Officer for the Environmental Protection Agency, Region 7 in Kansas City, and came back home to North Carolina, came back home to my place of birth, Fayetteville, and I launched my business, A Doorway for You. So I do coaching, executive and leadership coaching, and consulting, pulling on my experience as a human resources professional, a consultant, and working with individuals and organizations on solutions that they need.
Okay. So for those of you that are listening in, there is the website there for Miss Lewis. So please make sure you check that out. There'll also be more information in the show notes that will go up either this evening or sometime tomorrow. But again, make sure you read her profile. As Chantel said, she has a very impressive profile out there. So tell me, so starting your business, so now you have this MBA from, again, Washington University at St. Louis. Oh, but before I go on to that, didn't you have an opportunity to do an international component with your program at WashU?
Yes, we went to China as our capstone assignment. So went to both Beijing and Shanghai. And it was just a tremendous experience. 10 days, and got to tour the Great Wall of China, uh,
Mm,
drove on that speed train, went to the financial district, the healthcare district, learned so much about the culture there. Had classes there with other students. There was a marriage between WashU and the university there in China. So took courses and had exchanges there. It was an amazing experience, an amazing experience.
yes, it sounds like it was. So now we have our doorway for you. How did you come up with that name? I'm always interested. How do people name their businesses?
Yeah. So I am a Christian. And again, so grateful that I was successful. December 2015, I finished the program at WashU. And it was my vision. I told you my plans. Um, where I wanted to move next in my career was in the senior executive service with the federal government. And they call it, acronyms, the SES. And so I was researching some opportunities, and literally I saw three opportunities that were very, very interesting to me. Uh, and as I was praying, I just looked at these opportunities, and one of them, it was really a fourth one. One was retirement. Uh,
Mhm.
and what I did, I prayed. I said, Lord, I am not smart enough to know what my next steps should be, but I'm going to stand on your word. You open doors that no man can shut, and you shut doors that no man can open. And I ask that you open the door that you want me to walk through. And I did my due diligence in applying for these jobs, and one by one, the doors shut. The last job, I had never in my almost 30-year, it was basically about a 30-year career at that
Mhm.
time, never had an interview, a job experience like this. I made it to the final round. They told me I was one of the finalists. They flew me to DC, gave me a tour of the place. I could see the White House next door, showed me the executive cafeteria. My interview was in the director's office, linen on the table, real china, chatted with me like we had been childhood friends. I left that interview, and just by faith, I started packing my bags because I knew that was my job. Some time went on, and they called me, and I didn't get it. And I cried crocodile tears. I actually, because I just finished this executive MBA. I didn't want to retire. I wanted to be a senior executive with the federal government. And as I dealt with that rejection, I remembered my prayer. And so when I did the due diligence for filing for retirement, you typically put in three projected dates. And when
Mhm.
I got that paperwork, they had left out some of my employment history. I wasn't looking to retire, so I wasn't worried about it. But when I didn't get that third job, I called a friend who was a benefits specialist, told her what the issue was. She told me to send her the paperwork. We were on the phone. And as she was typing on the phone, her name was Cynthia. I said, Cynthia, what's the earliest date would I be eligible to retire? Because I put in a end of the year for that year, end of the year the next year, and then after my birthday the third year. Those were the three projected dates. And she started smiling. I heard her chuckle. And then she says, Angela, you are eligible to retire on August the 30th. When I was talking to her, it was that first Friday in August. It was August the 5th. She couldn't see me. We weren't Zooming. I was going, I had the phone. I was going like, I was just stuttering. Like, you mean like this August the 30th? And then she said to me these words. She says, Angela, you are eligible to walk out of the door with full benefits on August the 30th. And I know that's not the language you walk out the door, but I knew that that was my prayer. And literally, when I heard her say those words, all of the pain, the anxiety, dealing with rejection, I was blanketed in what I know for me as his peace. I knew that that was the door that I was supposed to walk through. So I had four doors, a doorway for you. That title came from my journey there.
Wow, that's an amazing story. I know how important your Christian faith is to you, but hearing you say it and fully flesh it out, it's just amazing because I know the work that you went through to get where you are and how you just stayed the course and did it at your own pace.
Mm-hmm.
Did it at your own pace. So tell somebody, so actually we have a comment here from Charlie Partlow Wilson. And I think it was when you were talking about, you didn't get the job and the feeling of rejection and what have you. It's just saying that I know that feeling. We've all had that feeling.
Yeah.
I was thinking as you were talking, I could hear Donnie McClurkin's song in my head about when we fall down, we get up,
You get
don't
up.
stand. And I'm like, oh, how many times do we do that sometimes we just do it. We just do it on faith.
Mm-hmm.
We just get back up because
Yeah.
that's what we do.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah. It's real. It's a part of, again, our life's journey, our path, that there are doors that open, there are doors that don't open.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is it's rejection. Rejection is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when you did your due diligence, 100%. You don't look back and say, I woulda, coulda, shoulda. You just nailed it. And then
Yes.
yeah, it knocks the wind out of you. And so, yeah,
It
that
does.
was a part of the journey. I told you I cried crocodile tears.
Oh, I can feel that I can relate to that so much because on my journey here to North Carolina,
Yeah.
I had my goals as far as what type of work I was going to do. It was never that I was going to own a business. I was going to work in a college. And 36 applications later,
Oh,
where sometimes you didn't even get rejected, you just didn't hear anything. I said,
yeah.
oh, I cannot keep setting myself up for this. So let me
Yeah.
figure out what I need to do the kind of work I want to do and be the boss of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And working towards that, still working towards that.
Mhm.
So hearing your journey, I'm sure there are people out there that can relate to this. If you're not watching it now, those of you that are watching it on the replay, I'm sure there is something in here that resonates with you, um, whether you're, high school, college, grad school, or just trying to figure out what your next step is. I'm pretty sure you've heard something in here that you can relate to.
Mhm.
So, in starting your business, tell us about what those steps were and how you got to put your business to where it is today.
Yeah. So even with an executive MBA, and I shared about that journey, I acknowledge that there are things that I don't know. And I'm a very methodical person. So what I do know is that our tax dollars pay for us to be successful in our business venture. And they do that through an organization called the Small Business Administration. Our acronyms, SBA. And so I reached out to the SBA here locally at Fayetteville Tech. They have a small business development center. And the way the program is set up, they assign you a business counselor. And that person works with you literally with a checklist of all the things, the components that are necessary for you to be successful as an entrepreneur. So they help you with your business plan, with your licensing. I'm an LLC. I am registered with the city of Fayetteville as a home-based business. I am a part of the government system called SAM, to be able to do business with the federal government. But I worked with a business counselor to take me through that process. I attended their training sessions, their conferences. So I followed their directions and their guidance and their tips and their strategies about launching my business to ensure its success. Again, I knew that there were things that I didn't know, and I knew passion alone wasn't going to get it. And so with that combination, Kent Hill at FTCC is just remarkable. He and his team there are very, very, very supportive, just outstanding service. And through that guidance, they helped me to see me in a different perspective, because my target audience, in terms of when I focused on my business, was only in the faith-based community. I was looking to work with faith-based organizations, pulling my HR consulting to help them function with greater efficiency and effectiveness. And so what they said, yeah, but you got years of experience with the federal government. We got the largest military base here. Why don't you also consider casting the net wide and doing contracting work with the government? And so I'm doing both. The coaching, literally coaching and consulting, are two different industries. And so I elected, because coaching is not a regulated industry, but I elected to be credentialed by the International Coaching Federation. And that was a journey with another journey. I invested in myself. That was more money, more investment in myself, to be, in my lens, the kind of coach that I wanted to be. And I went through that training program. I got credentialed by them. They actually have 3 levels of credentials. And I have to tell you that I am now at the 2nd level. I haven't updated my website. I just got the news on Friday that I'm now what they call a PCC with the International Coaching Federation, a professional certified coach. I went through that training program and reached their credential of being an associate credentialed coach. Now I'm at the 2nd level of professional credentialed coach. So with that coaching experience, and with my consulting experience, I have an ability to work not only with individuals in helping them achieve their goals, but also organizationally to help them look at, what are their strengths, what are their barriers, what are their challenges, and what are the options available to reach those goals with the greatest level of efficiency. So I was able to literally get clarity in writing my business plan through those excellent business counselors at Fayetteville Tech. I'm dealing now with Robin at Fayetteville State, because he's a PTAC, they call it. He deals with people who are interested in contracting with the federal government. So I switched from one kind of counselor at the Small Business Development Center to another one, but still under that big umbrella of the SBA. I would encourage every entrepreneur to take advantage. Your tax dollars pay for it. It's free. Go get it.
I have to second your endorsement of the Fayetteville Tech program in Kent Hill. Yeah. I was fortunate enough. That was one of the things that I did also when I started and when Kent came on to Fayetteville Tech,
Mhm.
attending those weekly 1 million cups meetings,
Yeah.
talking with Kent and his staff,
Yeah.
you just learn so much, and they're so supportive. and and I'm laughing because I can hear Kent in my head. I haven't seen him in a while, due to COVID, but I can hear him talking about the seminars and workshops, and he'd always
Mhm.
say, "So how much are those workshops? How much are they now?" And everybody would respond back, "Free." But
Exactly.
they were free and they were good. And one of the things that he did that I loved when he took on that position, he sat in on every single seminar and
Yeah.
workshop that FTCC offered, because
Yes.
he needed to make sure that the presenters were
Mhm.
adding value to what the people who were attending
Mhm.
um, would get out of the session.
Mhm.
So the second year, things changed. You started seeing a different quality of presenters.
Mhm.
The subject matters were geared toward what novice entrepreneurs, seasoned entrepreneurs, what they needed. He really listens to people. So
Mhm.
I definitely do challenge everyone out there, whether you're in, North Carolina, wherever you are, if you're
Exactly.
thinking about starting a business,
Mhm.
your community colleges all have these
Mhm.
programs.
Mhm.
Find them. They
Yeah.
are free and they're good. They are so, so good.
Yeah. And they cover the full diversity of
Mhm.
entrepreneurs. There's a special emphasis for veterans. There are so many opportunities for veterans to be entrepreneurs. And the reality is, our country is basically built on small businesses.
Mhm.
What gets the headlines are the major corporations, Fortune 50, Fortune 100, Fortune 500. Crunch those numbers. That's not a lot of businesses. And so we're built on small businesses, hence the value of the Small Business Administration. They want small businesses to succeed because America succeeds when small businesses succeed. And so there are also opportunities for minorities in the contracting world for the federal government. And there are certifications and credentials that you can
Mhm.
get through the Small Business Administration that puts you in a different kind of pool of competitiveness to try to ensure that opportunities will come your way. And
Yeah.
so I've been walking that journey, getting those type of credentials to ensure the greater likelihood of success in the contracting world.
Yeah. That is so good. We have
Mhm.
another comment here from Charlie. She was talking about your conversation overall and just talked about how powerful it is. And that we have that negative voice that we're not good enough. But I love, Charlie, what you said there about God doesn't make junk and we must trust him to open doors. That is
Yeah,
so, so true. And
yeah.
when we step out on faith more often,
Mhm.
these are the types of opportunities that come our way. They say, when God closes one door, he opens another.
Yes, he does.
Always, always, always.
And we have to, and listening to what I just heard you say about your journey, the 30 plus rejections,
Mhm.
God has a cadence and a plan. And we, as believers, the more we work at being in tune to his voice and what he's saying, the more we're able to move along the paths that he's directing. And so it's a lifelong, continuous process.
Mhm.
We have to continually fight the negativity. We have systems in our world that are designed um, to exclude and not to
Mhm.
include. So it's
Yes.
not just only the internal narratives, it's the external messages and the barriers that are real. You can call them glass ceilings, you can call it systemic discrimination, racism. Those are part of the realities that exist. And so we have to have, and I want to encourage everyone, and I know Belinda, you can attest to this. It is
Mhm.
work. When
Yes.
you are an entrepreneur, we smiling and talking, but honey, it is work. And the success is literally on your shoulders. You have to have that type of resilience and tenacity. You get more no's than you get
Yes,
yeses.
you
You
do.
keep digging and digging and digging, and you don't see light. The tunnel is dark, but you know your purpose and you know your passion, and you trust who's in control, and you don't give up. As you just said, it's a faith walk, and our word tells us that it's not a sight walk. And
Right.
so we just take one step of faith at a time, trusting Him to make the connections. But again, we got to do the work. We just don't sit back and
Hmm.
wait for the phone to ring.
That is so true. That is so true. You know, it was funny as I think back on those 36 rejections, and because I'll take them all as rejections, even those that didn't respond.
Mhm.
Um, that was like the first time I had been out of work since I was like 13 or 14 years old. So it
Yeah.
was like, now what do I do with this? But I also knew what I brought to the table. I
Yes.
knew that I had I don't even know if I call it a passion. It's just in my DNA to be an educator. You
Mhm.
know, I'm just always in that teaching mode. And I just had to find another avenue, never thinking it was going to be starting a business.
Mhm.
Um, but when I look at everything and how it's brought me full circle, you know, I have my business clients, I have my part-time school clients, and I'm teaching again at Providence College. So it's like, you know, if I had gotten one of those jobs
Yeah.
that I had applied for, a whole different trajectory. And probably not one that I would have been. I actually told someone, I said, you know, I did apply to a couple of schools, and I did say, if I had been hired at that school, I probably would have been fired within 2 weeks because our values didn't align.
Mhm.
Our
Mhm.
values did not align, and it was listening to that voice that this is not for you.
Yeah.
You know, just take it easy, chill out a little bit, but this is not for you.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
not for you.
Yeah. So
So
one of
tell
the
me a little bit. So you do so much with your business, with everything you do. What do you do for self-care? You
I'm
cannot be
gonna
working all the
I'm
time because we know
I'm
you cannot
laughing.
work from
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
from a
I'm laughing because again, it's a learning curve. I literally, in terms of my journey, had to ask God for wisdom. As I shared with you, I was a full time mom and ended up being a single mom. So I had three children that stair steps, the first two just 14 months apart, and the second one born 2 years later. And so I had this drive that, you know, if it had to be done, it was up to me. And being a single mom in a workforce and workplace, again, where the message was you work twice as hard to get half the credit. And then I was in a culture, like I said, doing labor and employee relations, where people were mad and angry. I was dealing with disputes and conflicts throughout the day at work. Um, and so I really wasn't doing well at self care and had a lot of health issues. But I have learned the value of self care. So, one of the things I've been intentional about was making sure I got physical exercise in. So, several years ago, I started walking. When I retired, I did water aerobics and some Tai Chi, and then the pandemic hit and started just doing walking. I live right across the street from the prestigious Fayetteville State University, and that has been my walking trail. But then a couple of months ago, I got an accountability partner who walks with me 6 days a week on the Cape Fear Trail. So I've been able to get some walking in, and I've been intentional
yes.
about trying to get adequate rest. And so I use my smartphone to try to get 8 hours of sleep. Honey, I'm getting ready for bed at 9 o'clock at night. I'm supposed to be asleep by 10 because I'm up at 6. I'm just an early riser. So I had to be intentional about things like that, self care. And I
Right.
call it the triad: it's rest, nutrition, and physical activity. So I've been intentional about making sure I grow and learn and apply those to my life. And I'm feeling a lot better. I'm doing a lot better. And it's causing me, in terms of my own thinking and creativity, to be in a better place.
Thank you for that. I think that's so important because so often um, we put our needs to the side and we know that you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah,
I always hear that, the flight attendant saying, put on your oxygen mask first. So, learning how to do that at this age, but sticking with it and being accountable to others and being accountable to ourselves also,
right.
because it feels good to take care of yourself. It really does.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
literally, I think my greatest growth in this has been as a coach, because
Mm,
when I'm coaching, my coaching clients are dealing with a lot of the same things. So I have to model, what I'm sharing in terms
mhm.
of, different perspectives and different barriers to overcome. And
Right.
so I'm applying a lot of those tips and strategies, most of them to myself, because I have the same needs.
Yeah, that is so true. So,
Mhm.
Miss Lewis, one of the things I always like to ask guests to do is to share um, a favorite book or a meaningful book with the audience, because as people that know Dr. B, I love reading. And if you're not at the library, folks, you need to go. The library right now has their summer reading program. It's running through August. So if you live in Cumberland County and you have not signed up, get on it.
Well,
So
thank you
tell
so
me, so
much.
tell me about a book you'd like to recommend to the audience.
Well, I literally just finished this week reading The Happiest Man on Earth. It's the beautiful life of an Auschwitz survivor. His name is Eddie Jaku. And he is a centurion. He is now 101 years
Mm,
old. And he tells his journey. And the greatest takeaways, I captured quotes and things that resonated with me from his book. He
mhm,
experienced the most horrible atrocities that any human being can experience, and he refuses to have hatred in his heart. He acknowledged that no matter what our circumstances, we have the power of choice. We can control ourselves. He says life can be beautiful if you make it beautiful.
mhm.
Happiness is something we can choose. It is up to you. And that is so contrary to the narratives of our culture.
Mhm.
Buy this car to make you happy, get this kind of job to make you happy. And you go after your ladder is up to the wrong kind of building. You're going after the wrong thing. And I listened to the wisdom of this man. And I'm telling you, it's still doing something within me. I just finished reading it, just going back to be able to absorb the authenticity, the richness of the lessons learned from his journey, and how can I apply them now, especially in America, where our culture now, our world is filled with so much divisiveness and hatred.
Mhm.
I don't want to be intoxicated
Mhm.
by this toxic environment. And I'm able to pull some truths and some real, authentic, genuine wisdom from this book. I encourage everyone. It's an easy read, it's a wonderful read.
I know when we talked about it earlier, I said, "Oh, let me go on Amazon and see if it's there." But what I will be doing is checking to see if it's at the library because I am really dedicated to using my library card more often. So if
Mm.
it's not at the library, I will definitely be recommending that as one to read. Um, I just love what you said about, happiness is a choice, and we have so many choices that we don't always recognize.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes that's because we're moving at a fast pace.
Mhm.
And rather than just stepping back and taking time to think, we're just, okay, I got to make this decision, got to make this decision. And I know in the last year, I think one of the silver linings of COVID, if there is one, is that it did force us all to slow down.
Yeah. So
It
can I
forced,
share with you, prior to COVID, before I retired,
yes.
I had what I call the 4 Ps for my team. We were overwhelmed, we were understaffed. It was a very, very dark time. And I told them to practice the pause. And when you practice the pause, you pause, slow down as you just described, you ponder, start giving some thoughts to what's going on. Then you get your plan and you proceed. So the 4 Ps were our mantra. Our society is moving so rapidly. We have the power of choice. We can get off that treadmill. We can get off that hamster's wheel and we can be still, especially us as believers, and listen to the voice of our Father. He's a speaking God. My sheep know my voice. A stranger, they're not going to follow. But if we take the time to practice the pause, it will help us.
Uh, I I hear that so well. I hear that so well, and I know I am working diligently to practice that pause. I did a little one today, because I'm proud of myself because I did. It took that pause. Um, Miss Lewis, this has been a fantastic conversation. Um, I hope folks that are listening to it live and people that are going to listen to this on the replay definitely get something out of this. It is. So we have a comment from Michelle. It is. Isn't it awesome, Michelle? Michelle, I love you so much. Miss Lewis, Michelle is our wonderful collard wrap lady. So
Woo-hoo!
she's here with us, and I love it that she joins in because she always has something to say. And Stacy has said that it's been an awesome conversation. Thank you, Stacy, for that. And I'm
Thank you.
glad that you found it useful and you found it valuable, because that's one of my goals is to have um, conversations with folks who are out there doing the work, who are going through the same struggles that all of us are going through. There's no magical formula to doing what needs to be done. We can read about celebrities and athletes and other folks in the public eye. That's great, but we've got everyday people out here doing the work. And so my goal is to bring to you everyday people, especially everyday Black and brown people, because representation matters. It
Mhm.
matters so much for all of us.
Mhm.
So, Miss Lewis, any last words you'd like to leave with our audience?
Well, I certainly appreciate this opportunity to be your guest and to be able to talk uh, to your audience. Um, I want to say, in terms of shout outs for our HBCUs, that I'm so grateful for the journey. I'm also in a place of advocating for the success and the thriving of our HBCUs. It's greatly needed now. I want to say thank you again to everyone that's on the call. Um, if you need me, call me. I'd love to be your coach and to help you and your organizations with any consulting, any issue that you have where consulting can help you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Valerie, thank you for that wonderful comment. Yes. And still she persists. Yes, yes, yes. So let me just share with you again Miss Lewis's website. So those of you that are interested, please go on her website, check it out. There, her contact form is on the website if you're interested. And thank you, everyone, for being such wonderful, wonderful, wonderful participants and guests in coming to hear college and career conversations. And my goal is to continue bringing you these conversations with everyday people. Um, so thank you so much. And we have one more comment here. Let me make sure I get this in. Um, so we have a comment who said he enjoys listening to us aspiring queens. Thank you so much. Much success. Thank you for that comment. Really appreciate that. It's important, again, that we have these conversations because we have young folk out there that we want to make sure that they have the best start to life as possible. And
Excellent.
we don't want them to make the same mistakes that we had to make. And we also want to make sure that we're clearing away barriers and gatekeeping for them.
Excellent.
So that's part of what we do here. So, everyone, I will see you next Monday evening at the same time, Monday, 7 p.m. And thank you again so much for joining in. And take care, everyone, and have a fantastic evening. Good night.
Good night.